India is a land of mysteries that have existed for thousands of years, where colossal temples carved directly from the rock face and legends of gods still resonate today. From the Indus Valley civilization with its pre-modern cities, to the Kushan Empire that once dominated trade routes connecting east and west, and Dwarka, the legendary city believed to have rested at the bottom of the sea for thousands of years. Behind these wonders lies the legacy of Hindu civilization, one of the greatest civilizations ever to appear on Earth. But what caused this civilization of gods to gradually fade into the mists of history? Do the secrets still hidden beneath the earth hold a chapter of history that humanity is only just beginning to uncover? Long before the pyramids rose above the Egyptian desert, and long before Rome became a symbol of urban engineering, a remarkable world flourished across the lands of the Indus River. One that continues to astonish archaeologists today. Not because of mighty kings or great wars, but because of the extraordinary way its people built a society unlike almost any other of its time. As layers of ancient earth were carefully uncovered, Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa emerged as though time itself had swallowed them, only to reveal them once again. Streets intersected at nearly perfect right angles. Rows of houses stood in orderly alignment. Every brick followed the same precise proportions. Nothing appears to have been built by chance. Everything had been planned in advance. Even more surprising was what lay where no one could see it. Beneath those streets stretched an extensive underground drainage system that ran throughout the city. Many homes had private bathrooms. Wastewater flowed through covered sewers. Hundreds of wells were distributed across residential neighborhoods. While much of the world still lived among mud and standing water, this infrastructure reveals that these people placed exceptional importance on water management and urban sanitation. At the heart of Mohenjo-Daro stood the Great Bath, a large pool built from fired bricks and sealed with waterproof bitumen. The two stairways leading down into the water remain almost intact after more than 4,000 years. No one knows exactly what this place was used for. Yet every clue suggests it was far more than an ordinary bathing pool. Perhaps, from a very early time, water already held a sacred meaning for this community. If Mohenjo-Daro demonstrates how they designed their cities, Dholavira reveals how they adapted to nature. In an arid landscape where rainfall was so rare that every storm was precious, they carved directly into bedrock to create dozens of water reservoirs. Rainwater channels were carefully arranged throughout the city. Not a single drop was wasted. They did not try to conquer the climate. They learned how to live with it. That same level of sophistication appeared in even the smallest objects. Identical standardized weights have been discovered in cities separated by hundreds of kilometers. Thousands of finely carved stone seals display extraordinary precision. At the port of Lothal, archaeologists uncovered an ancient dock where ships once carried carnelian beads, cotton textiles, and ivory across the sea to Mesopotamia. The world of the Harappans was far larger than anyone once imagined. Yet the more we learn about them, the greater the mystery becomes. More than 4,000 symbols have been found engraved on their seals, and no one has been able to read them. Research teams, including projects using artificial intelligence, have attempted to help decipher the script, but no consensus has been reached. The language remains as silent today as it was when it was carved into stone 4,000 years ago. Even more remarkable is what is missing. There are no massive palaces, no royal tombs, no monumental reliefs celebrating military conquest. Instead, archaeologists have uncovered remarkably uniform residential neighborhoods, terracotta goddess figurines, and the famous Pashupati seal depicting a figure seated in meditation among wild animals. This vast civilization left behind more evidence of everyday life than of political power. The latest DNA research is gradually filling in the missing pieces. Genetic studies indicate that the people of the Indus Valley made a significant contribution to the ancestry of many present-day South Asian populations, alongside other ancestral groups that arrived later. Newly excavated skeletons are revealing details about disease, diet, and daily life. Climate research, meanwhile, points to another factor. The monsoon gradually weakened, followed by decades of prolonged drought. Rivers changed their courses. The people did not disappear overnight. Instead, they slowly left the thriving cities they had built, carrying their knowledge and traditions into new lands. Many researchers believe this may be the greatest achievement of the Indus Valley civilization. People had already learned how to plan cities, manage resources, and work together to create a sustainable society. And from that same land, a new chapter in the history of the Indian subcontinent began to take shape, laying the foundation for the cultures that would follow. From above, Dwarka appears to be nothing more than a coastal city on the western edge of India. But as the sun sets and the tide recedes, those waters seem to conceal something far older. More than 3,000 years ago, this was once a gateway to the Indian Ocean. Wooden ships departed with the seasonal winds. The sound of shipbuilders' hammers blended with the crashing waves, the scent of sea salt mixed with fresh timber and tree resin. This was not a land at the edge of the world. It was where the world came together. For centuries, Dwarka was known only through the epic stories of India. They spoke of a magnificent city that disappeared beneath the sea. The traces that remained sounded more like legend than history. That changed when divers carrying cameras and archaeological equipment began exploring the waters off the coast of Dwarka and Bet Dwarka Island. Beneath the blue water, they did not find the gold-covered walls described in legend. Instead, they discovered carefully arranged stone blocks, the foundations of ancient structures, the remains of a harbor, and hundreds of stone anchors that had rested undisturbed on the seafloor for thousands of years. Those anchors changed the way archaeologists viewed Dwarka. They were not meaningless stones. They had been carefully carved into different designs to hold wooden ships steady against powerful waves. Their forms closely match anchors found at ports dating to the late period of the Indus Valley civilization. Surrounding them were red pottery, beads, bronze bracelets, and many artifacts commonly associated with ancient merchants. Together, they tell a single story. Dwarka was once a busy port where goods and people moved constantly. Not a city that existed only in legend, Dwarka's location seems almost perfectly suited for the sea. Dwarka's location seems almost perfectly suited for the sea. On one side lies the mouth of the Gomati River. On the other are the sheltered waters of Bet Dwarka,
These small bays allowed ships to take refuge from storms before crossing the Indian Ocean. From here, merchants could sail toward the Persian Gulf, reach Mesopotamia, and centuries later establish connections with Rome. Ancient coins, imported pottery, and evidence of shell-working workshops reveal that this place was once an important link in the trade networks of the ancient world. The sea did not divide civilizations. It connected them, yet the most fascinating part is not beneath the water. It lies in the way the city disappeared. For many years, many people believe that Dwarka sank beneath the sea in a single night after a catastrophic disaster. Archaeological evidence tells a different story. There is no trace of a golden city swallowed instantly by the ocean. Layers of soil, artifacts, and ancient structures indicate that the sea gradually advanced inland over many centuries. Sea levels changed, the coastline slowly shifted, waves carried sand, stone, and the remains of human settlements. Each time the sea moved farther inland, the inhabitants retreated a little farther. They rebuilt their harbor and constructed new homes. The city continued to evolve with the rhythm of the ocean. In recent years, technology has allowed researchers to see more clearly what the sea had long concealed. Seafloor sonar has revealed additional structures resembling ancient piers. Three-dimensional models suggest that many of these formations were likely built by human hands rather than formed by nature. New excavations on Bet Dwarka Island continue to uncover solid architectural remains along with numerous artifacts from international trade routes. Every new discovery removes another layer of legend from the story of Dwarka, yet somehow makes it even more astonishing, because reality is often more enduring than imagination. Dwarka is not evidence of a civilization that vanished in an instant. It is evidence of people who knew how to live with the sea. They understood the monsoon winds. They knew how to build harbors, craft anchors, and choose safe shelter from storms. They created a gateway that connected multiple civilizations while much of the world remained separated by distance. And when the sea changed its course, they changed with it. As the harbors of Dwarka were gradually claimed by the sea, life across the Indian subcontinent did not come to a halt. Travelers still followed the old roads. Fields were still planted after every monsoon. Only the center of this world was slowly shifting. A new era began so gradually that the people living through it may never have realized they were stepping into a different age. Today, we call it the Vedic period. For many years, it was believed that this culture emerged only after the Harappan civilization had disappeared. But the deeper archaeologists dig into the earth, the more that boundary begins to fade. There is no massive layer of ash, no evidence of a conquest that changed everything overnight. Instead, there are continuous layers of settlement. One house collapsed, and another was built directly above it. One generation grew old, and the next grew up on the very same ground. Across what is now northwestern India and Pakistan, archaeologists have uncovered more than 1,000 archaeological sites stretching along the ancient Gagar-Hakra riverbed. Many scholars suggest that the Gagar-Hakra may be connected to the Saraswati River described in the Rig Veda. Thousands of years ago, that river carried water from the Himalayas across the plains. Then the climate changed, the monsoon weakened, the flow gradually diminished. Eventually, only dry riverbeds remained, cutting across the desert. As the water disappeared, people began to leave as well, but they did not vanish. They carried the surviving traces of their homeland into new lands. Excavations at Rocky Garhi are revealing the rest of the story. Beneath the hard brown soil lie human remains that have rested undisturbed for more than 4,000 years. Some individuals were still wearing bracelets made from marine shells. Nearby were pottery, beads, and the familiar objects of everyday life. They remind us that even as cities changed, trade routes continued to exist. The sea still carried shells inland. People continued to meet one another, just as they had for centuries. Modern science has since added another piece to the picture. Genetic research indicates that many Harappan communities gradually mixed with other populations over the centuries following the civilization's decline. Over many generations, new communities slowly blended with older ones. They brought new languages, new customs, and new beliefs. The process unfolded slowly enough that daily life was never truly interrupted. A new culture emerged, little by little, like two rivers merging together before continuing to flow under a single name. That continuity can also be seen in ancient structures. At Kalibangan and Rocky Garhi, archaeologists have discovered fire altars whose designs closely resemble the rituals described in the Rig Veda. At Mohenjo-Daro, a seal depicting a figure seated cross-legged among wild animals has fueled debate among researchers for decades. Some believe it represents an early image of the god Shiva. Others argue that it is simply a prehistoric shaman. Whatever the answer may be, one fact remains unchanged. Many symbols survived far longer than the cities that created them. Everyday life also changed far less than people once believed. Families continued building homes with standardized fired bricks. They continued growing wheat and rice while raising livestock. Cotton was still woven into cloth. Craftsmen continued using precise measurements to construct altars and divide farmland. At night, they still looked toward the sky to determine the planting seasons and follow the movements of the stars. Knowledge did not disappear with the civilization. It continued its journey through the people who carried it forward. That is why many historians today no longer view the Harappan civilization and the Vedic culture as two completely separate worlds. Rather than disappearing, one civilization was transforming into another. Old bricks became the foundation of a new age. From that very land, the first kingdoms of India would gradually emerge. They would carry with them the legacy of brick-built cities, vanished rivers, and people who never stopped adapting to a world that was constantly changing around them. A new power emerged from lands far to the northwest. They were not born on the plains of the Ganges, nor did they belong to the ancient cities of the Harappan civilization. They were the Kushans. Their cavalry once crossed the steppes of Central Asia, passed through the Hindu Kush mountains, and entered the Indian subcontinent. Yet what made them memorable was not simply their conquests. It was the way they transformed an empire positioned between many different worlds into a place where civilizations came together. Walking through Mathura nearly 2,000 years ago, one would have encountered bustling streets lined with red brick kilns glowing day and night. Residential neighborhoods continued to rise upon the foundations of older settlements. At Sunk, archaeologists uncovered 7 successive settlement layers dating to the Kushan period. Each layer preserved traces of houses, courtyards, and roadways. Bricks of almost identical dimensions appeared again and again across generations. They reveal that this was not a temporary military camp, It was a thriving city that developed steadily over many centuries. Mathura was also where the Kushan Empire left its clearest mark. Within the same district, sculptors created statues of the Buddha, Shiva, and many other deities using the very same artistic style. Calm faces, robes carved so delicately they seemed to flow like real fabric. Solid stone gradually took the form of many different faiths. No civilization was erased. They stood side by side like neighbors. That same story is written on their gold coins. When archaeologists brushed away the soil covering their surfaces, they discovered something extraordinary. One side bore the portraits of Kushan rulers, the other displayed Shiva, the Iranian god Mithra, or gods from ancient Greece. Within a single small coin, 3 different worlds appeared together. It speaks volumes about an empire stretching across the Silk Road, where merchants, soldiers, and pilgrims crossed paths every day. Emperor Kanishka stands as the clearest example of that cultural blending. He is remembered as one of the greatest patrons of Buddhism. During his reign, numerous monasteries were built, and Buddhist monks continued carrying their faith across Central Asia and into China. At the same time, Kanishka's coins continued to depict Shiva. Local temples continued to expand as well. There is no evidence that one religion completely replaced another. Different beliefs existed side by side, flourished together, and gradually influenced one another. Farther west, at Surk Kotal and Tapa Sardar, stone monuments still stand in silence after nearly 2,000 years. Monumental statues, fire altars, and ancient inscriptions reveal how influences from Iran, Greece, and India. The Kushans did not attempt to create an entirely new civilization from nothing. They chose instead to connect what already existed. Trade made that possible. The Kushan Empire controlled one of the most important sections of the Silk Road. From the Mediterranean, goods passed through Persia, crossed Afghanistan, and reached northern India. Ivory, spices, gemstones, and silk changed hands at every stage of the journey. Along with merchandise came languages, religions, and new ideas. A statue carved in the Greek artistic tradition could stand inside an Indian temple. A merchant from Persia could pray beside a Buddhist monk. Things that seemed unrelated found one another at the very heart of the Kushan Empire. Excavations at Sanghole and many other archaeological sites continue adding new pieces to the historical record. Pottery inscribed with Brahmi script, gold coins, stone sculptures, and Gandhara-style artifacts have all been found together within the same archaeological layers. They do not tell the story of an empire defined only by conquest. They tell the story of a land that remained open to the outside world. Perhaps that was the Kushan's greatest achievement. They did not leave behind pyramids or walls stretching for thousands of miles. What they left behind was an invisible bridge linking Central Asia with India, Greece with Persia, and Buddhism with Hinduism. Across that bridge, ideas would continue traveling even farther. If the Kushan Empire served as a bridge between many cultures, then the Gupta Empire marked the moment when that bridge began to flourish. Around the 4th century CE, northern India was no longer defined by armies marching across its plains. Instead, the sound of chisels echoed through construction sites. Scholars spent sleepless nights studying the heavens, and blacksmiths forged a metal capable of defying time itself. Across the Ganges River basin, the first temples built of stone and brick began to appear. Dashavatara, Bhitargajan, and the temple complexes of Udayagiri were not monumental in scale. Yet they introduced a new architectural tradition. Stone walls became thicker. Temple towers rose higher. Intricate carvings covered entire surfaces. Every slab of stone retold a chapter of the Hindu epics. Centuries later, thousands of temples across India would continue to follow the architectural patterns first established during the Gupta period. At Udayagiri, the inscriptions of King Chandragupta II still remain carved into the rock. After more than 15 centuries, at Bilsar, another inscription bearing the royal title, Sri Mahendraditya, still rests upon ancient stone steps. They resemble the surviving signatures of an entire age. Yet one monument has astonished modern scientists more than any other. It is the Iron Pillar of Delhi. Standing more than 7 meters tall and weighing several tons, the pillar has remained exposed to the elements for over 1,600 years. Rain, heat, wind, and pollution have done remarkably little to destroy it. For centuries, many believed it was an unsolved mystery. Only after scientists examined the metal under powerful microscopes did metallurgists discover an extremely thin phosphate layer that had naturally formed across its surface. That protective film shielded the pillar from rust. It was not magic. Nor was it a lost technology. It was the result of metallurgical craftsmanship that ranked among the most advanced metalworking techniques of its time. While builders were creating monuments from stone, Gupta scholars were constructing another kind of monument, one built from numbers. Aryabhata devoted many years to observing the heavens. He calculated an approximation of pi. He advanced the study of trigonometry. And he wrote that the earth itself rotates, rather than the sky revolving around humanity. It was an idea that appeared far ahead of its time. After him, Varahamihira continued recording knowledge of astronomy, meteorology, and calendar science. India's mathematical and astronomical ideas would later pass through the Islamic world before influencing medieval Europe. Art also evolved in a remarkably quiet way. At Mathura and Sarnath, statues of the Buddha with serene expressions began to appear, distinguished by balanced proportions and graceful lines. That artistic style quickly spread to Sri Lanka, Myanmar. On Gupta gold coins, portraits of the emperor appeared alongside Vishnu or Lakshmi. Within a single small coin, one could see the power, faith, and economy of an entire empire. The more archaeologists excavate, the more authentic our understanding of the Gupta Empire becomes. Not every region was as prosperous as the imperial capital. Some cities gradually began to shrink. Evidence of major floods still lies buried beneath layers of earth. Recent genetic research also suggests that Gupta society became increasingly closed, as marriages within the same social class became more common. For that reason, the Golden Age was not a perfect paradise. It was the brightest era for scholarship, art, and political power, while life in many places continued to change according to the forces of nature. Even so, what remained after the empire disappeared was not its armies or its borders. It was the temples that still stand firm after more than 1,000 years. It was the iron pillar that remains almost untouched by centuries of sun and rain. It was the numbers that the entire world continues to use every day. And from this very foundation, a new chapter of Indian history began to unfold. As the southern kingdoms carried the achievements of the Gupta Empire across the seas to Southeast Asia and beyond, The Chola Empire did not leave its mark through pyramids or colossal fortress walls. They chose a different way to carve their name into history. They raised massive granite temples. They opened seaports that faced the open ocean. And they transformed the sea into a highway linking India with nearly all of Southeast Asia. From roughly the 9th to the 13th century, while many of the world's great empires were still expanding their territories through wars on land, the Cholas looked toward the ocean. They understood that power did not rest only in armies, but also aboard ships carrying spices, textiles, copper, gold, and knowledge. Nothing illustrates this more clearly than Brihadisvara Temple. Built by King Rajaraja I more than 1,000 years ago, the immense temple still stands proudly across the plains of Tamil Nadu. Granite blocks weighing dozens of tons were transported from great distances and fitted together with remarkable precision, using very little binding material compared with many structures of the same era. Even today, many researchers continue to debate how the Cholas raised those enormous stones to the top of a tower standing more than 60 meters high. Brihadisvara was not alone. Gangaikunda Cholapuram and Aravatesvara reveal the same astonishing level of engineering. Every one of these monuments served not only as a place of worship, but also as an administrative center, a granary, a school, and the hub for coordinating the region's economic activities. At Vadakupattu, archaeologists have uncovered hundreds of artifacts dating to the Chola period. They include gold jewelry, iron tools, pottery, terracotta figures, and countless traces of a highly developed artisan community. Near the capital of Gangaikunda Cholapuram, granite foundations remain intact after more than 1,000 years. They demonstrate that the Cholas were not building merely for the reign of a single king. They were building for generations yet to come. Perhaps their most celebrated achievement, however, lies in their bronze sculptures. The image of Shiva Nataraja performing the cosmic dance has become one of the defining symbols of Indian art. Modern studies using neutron tomography and metal diffraction have shown that these sculptures were cast with extraordinary precision using the lost wax technique. Molten metal filled even the finest details. As it cooled, it formed durable crystalline structures that continue to earn the admiration of modern technology. On surviving stone inscriptions and copper plates, the Cholas recorded nearly everything that took place throughout their empire. From land grants to temples, tax collection, and the construction of water reservoirs, to funding Buddhist monasteries abroad. These inscriptions reveal a remarkably organized administrative system. Many villages were granted the authority to govern themselves through local councils. Temples became centers that united religion, commerce, and community life. They were not simply places of prayer. They also stored grain, managed production, and connected merchants from many different lands. The strength of the Cholas did not rest on land alone. They controlled maritime trade routes through knowledge accumulated across generations of seafaring. They understood the monsoon winds, the ocean currents, and the rhythms of the Indian Ocean. When King Rajendra I launched his naval expedition against Srivijaya in Sumatra during the 11th century, his objective was not to conquer all of Southeast Asia. It was to protect the vital trade routes that sustained the entire empire. After those expeditions, goods, the Tamil language, artistic traditions, and religious beliefs continued spreading across Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand. Chinese artifacts, ceramics, coins and goods from Africa discovered at the port of Nagapattinam have demonstrated the vast scale of that network. Although the Cholas devoted themselves to supporting Hinduism, particularly the worship of Shiva, they also funded numerous Buddhist institutions. Inscriptions such as the Anaimangalam records still document grants provided to monasteries overseas. That reflects a society far more open than the conventional image of a medieval empire. Perhaps for that reason, what the Cholas left behind is found not only in magnificent stone temples or exquisite bronze sculptures. It also lives in their ability to connect people across the sea, to transform trade into power, and to make culture something capable of crossing every border. And from that very foundation, their influence remains visible in the architecture, art, and culture of many Southeast Asian nations to this day. Hidden deep beneath the tropical forests of Cambodia lies one of the greatest cities humanity has ever built. Not Rome, not Alexandria, but Angkor. For centuries, towering trees concealed almost the entire empire beneath their canopy. From the ground, only a handful of stone temples rose above the endless jungle. But when LiDAR technology pierced through the dense forest, an entire world emerged. Thousands of perfectly straight roads, canals stretching to the horizon, massive reservoirs, earthen mounds that once supported homes, and the remains of an urban landscape covering thousands of square kilometers. It completely transformed the way archaeologists viewed Angkor. This was not merely a complex of temples. It was once one of the largest pre-modern cities on Earth. At the heart of the empire stood Angkor Wat and Angkor Thom. Sandstone blocks weighing several tons were fitted together with such precision that many of their joints have almost disappeared over time. Every wall is covered with bas-reliefs extending for hundreds of meters, depicting battles, ceremonies, daily life, and scenes from the great Hindu epics. Nearby stands Bayon, where hundreds of colossal stone faces have gazed silently over the city for centuries. Yet the Khmer people's greatest achievement did not stand above the ground. It flowed beneath it, within a water management system too vast to be fully seen with the naked eye. From the Phnom Kulen Plateau, the Khmer directed water across the plains through hundreds of kilometers of canals. They constructed enormous reservoirs known as bares. Some stretched for several kilometers, storing enough water to sustain entire dry seasons. Every canal was carefully engineered to regulate water flow between the rainy season and periods of drought. The water nourished vast rice fields before continuing into the city through moats, ponds, and stone drainage systems. It was a hydraulic engineering project on a scale rarely seen in the ancient world. This network enabled Angkor to support hundreds of thousands of inhabitants. Many modern studies estimate that the urban population may have reached between 700,000 and nearly 900,000 people, an astonishing figure for its time. Recent excavations also reveal that the Khmer possessed highly advanced engineering skills. Bronze statues, iron tools from Phnom Dek, and finely crafted stone artifacts all reflect exceptional craftsmanship. Modern neutron analysis of the bronze sculptures has demonstrated an astonishing level of precision in their casting techniques. Meanwhile, the temples served far more than religious purposes. They functioned as centers of political authority. The king was regarded as the Devaraja, the divine king. Political power and religious belief had become almost inseparable. Yet, like many other great civilizations, Angkor did not collapse overnight. For many years, people believed the Khmer Empire fell because of Ayutthaya's invasion in 1431. Today, archaeological evidence tells a different story. The canal system, originally designed for a stable climate, gradually became overwhelmed. Some dams failed, sediment clogged the waterways. Hydrological studies at Kokare also indicate that parts of the water management system experienced failures much earlier than once believed. At the same time, LiDAR data and new chronological models suggest that many residential districts had already been gradually abandoned before war ever arrived. The empire did not fall in a single decisive battle. It slowly contracted, generation after generation. Even as political power declined, Khmer culture continued to evolve rather than disappear. Hinduism gradually gave way to Theravada Buddhism. The transition unfolded with relatively little conflict. Ancient temples continued to serve new purposes. Merchants from India, China, and the kingdoms of Southeast Asia continued traveling along the familiar trade routes. Angkor therefore belongs to far more than Cambodia alone. It stands at the crossroads of a vast network of civilizations that once stretched across Asia. And within the forest that once swallowed an empire whole, those silent stones remain standing, as though preserving the memory of a time when humanity possessed the knowledge to reshape the very flow of nature itself in order to build one of the most extraordinary cities in history. Thousands of years have passed. The empires that once ruled rivers, seas, and vast trade networks have all faded into history. Temples may crumble, cities may be buried beneath forests and drifting sands, but the legacy of that civilization has never truly disappeared. It still lives in the numbers we use every day, in the temples that have remained standing for thousands of years, in the knowledge of astronomy, metallurgy, and architecture that continues to inspire scientific research. Every new excavation adds another missing piece to the archaeological record that time has scattered. And the clearer that picture becomes, the more we realize that this is not evidence of a civilization that was lost. It is the story of a civilization that never truly ceased to exist. It gradually transformed, blended into many other cultures, and continued living alongside humanity to the present day. That is why the legacy of the Hindu world does not belong solely to the past. It is still all around us, quiet, enduring, and unmistakably present, like the echo of one of the greatest civilizations in human history.
Thank you for staying with WUFO Space until the very end of this journey through the vast universe. If you found this video interesting and insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to WUFO Space so you won't miss our next cosmic adventures. Your support means the world to us and fuels our passion to keep exploring the wonders beyond.